Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous.
Walz. I don't know who thought he was a good idea. He was like a second iteration of Tim Kaine, but even worse. He turned out to be.
Imagine this. Tim Walz thinks he's masterminding a grand chess match, but Lindy Li just flipped the board, swiped the queen, and started juggling pawns while sipping tea. This isn't politics anymore. It's a roast, a breakdown, and a plot twist wild enough to make Netflix jealous. If you thought Walz's secrets were sealed tighter than Fort Knox, think again. Lindy just showed up with the keys, a flashlight, and a bucket of popcorn. Buckle up, because things are about to get chaotic.
These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude us.
He was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. He said that he never supported a national abortion ban. We have in writing a screenshot from his website wherein he supported a national abortion ban. So he was just lying.
If you're digging this, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. It does way more than you think. Tim Walz was gliding into 2025, wrapped in his perfectly ironed, Midwestern nice vibe, confident his clean-cut image was bulletproof. He was the political equivalent of comfort food, bland, predictable, but safe. Then Lindy Li showed up, not to knock, but to bulldoze straight through his polished persona with sarcasm sharp enough to shave steel. Overnight, the governor's spotless reputation went from home-cooked casserole to something left too long in the fridge, soft, sketchy, and starting to stink.
Who could possibly think it would be a good idea to lie about being in Tiananmen Square when you were in Nebraska? I mean, come on, it's just so beyond the pale. And now he's thinking about running for president? Didn't he get the memo that the American people do not want a second coming of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And Kamala is in California considering a run for governor. We do not want any more DEI woke, any of that. We just don't. We're done with the woke and trans.
Walz's entire image has been one long branding performance, the calm, collected leader telling everyone it's all under control while the house quietly burns down behind him. He's the type to flash a reassuring smile, pat you on the shoulder, and say, "Don't worry, I've got this," just as your Wi-Fi crashes, the fridge dies, and a raccoon sets your garage ablaze. On the surface, it's smooth confidence. Underneath, it's pure chaos. That's the illusion Lindy Li just ripped apart, and now everyone's glued to the spectacle as it unravels in real time.
What were you telling your mom, and how soon was it after the election? Like
a week or two. It wasn't at that point. I was just asking questions. Like it wasn't even. I was like, what happened to the $2.5 billion we raised? Why did we spend it on Beyonce? Why did we spend 2.5? Why did we spend millions of dollars on Oprah? Like legitimate questions that needed to be answered. But the amount of hate I got for that was just overwhelming. And the final straw, the moment that I knew that I needed to leave, was actually around Christmas.
To really appreciate the roast, you've got to see the costume for what it is. Walz built his persona like a political IKEA shelf. Simple, practical, and just sturdy enough to hold a few framed family moments. But look too closely, and the whole thing starts to shake. He's the ex-teacher turned politician, the friendly neighbor you'd trust to water your plants, the dad joke specialist who also commands the National Guard. On paper, it's the perfect balance of relatable and reliable. In reality, it's a setup held together by mismatched screws and cheap particle board, and this time, Lindy Li was the one who noticed and gave it a good shake.
And then the biggest tell of the evening was when he told the moderators, well, I thought the rules stipulated, or something to the effect of the rules were saying that you weren't going to fact check. And you talked about own goals. That was an own goal. That said everything.
But
so
Lindy,
he was counting on the fact that no one was going to push back.
Are you frustrated then that Walz didn't make the argument that you're making to me right now?
I think he did a really good job tonight. And we had a live focus group.
She took one look at Walz's record and basically said, "Nice mask. What's underneath?" And that's when the receipts started flying. While Walz liked to play the part of the calm hand on the wheel, his administration drove more like a teenager learning stick shift, jerky, uncertain, and all over the road. His COVID policies were a masterclass in mixed signals. Shut it down, open it up, lock it again, then shrug when everyone got confused. He sold himself as pragmatic, but his idea of strategy looked more like flipping a coin and calling it leadership. And when it came to crime, don't even go there, Walz tried to straddle the line between reform and law and order until he drowned in his own contradictions. While he clung to polished talking points, the headlines painted a much messier picture, one that didn't match his bedtime story of steady leadership. The brilliance of Lindy Li's takedown is that she didn't just call out his inconsistencies, she seasoned them with sarcasm like hot sauce. She exposed hypocrisy so blatant you couldn't unsee it if you tried. Walz preached moral high ground while cozying up so close to insiders he could have been mistaken for the furniture at a DC cocktail party. He branded himself as grassroots, but you'd need a telescope to find those roots buried under all that establishment polish.
His rating of the night when he pointed out that Trump completely failed on the border. He didn't deliver on the border wall that he promised. He blew up the border deal that we have, border as a campaign issue. So he scored really highly also when he mentioned Matthew 25 and how his faith guides and inspires his empathy for people, a quality that Trump and Vance so abundantly lack.
Lindy didn't just poke holes in Walz's narrative, she turned it into Swiss cheese. She reminded everyone that polishing your medals doesn't erase the messy decisions that earned them. What really burns isn't just that Walz looks inconsistent, it's that his everyman teacher persona now feels like a costume, not a character. It's like finding out your favorite indie band was cooked up in a marketing meeting to appeal to Target shoppers. That's Walz, the Target brand candidate. Now that he's stepped into the national spotlight as Harris's VP pick, the scrutiny isn't just bright, it's blinding. Every flaw that Minnesotans once shrugged off is now headline material. And Lindy Li? She's out there waving a neon sign that screams, "Look at this." If Walz thought he could coast on cardigan charm, that illusion's dead. She didn't just drop facts, she made them sting. And in politics, a sting that lingers is a wound that never heals. His team's now trapped between two bad options, ignore her or respond. Either way, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Ignoring Lindy is like ignoring a fire alarm. You can pretend it's not screaming, but everyone else is already heading for the exits.
It doesn't increase us from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals. They get early childhood education. They get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget, Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life.
Addressing it is even riskier. Stepping into Lindy's arena is like walking straight into a storm of sarcasm while already bleeding. But here's the twist. This isn't just about Walz anymore. It's about an entire political machine built on image management, and Walz just happens to be the latest poster boy caught mid-costume change. Lindy Li isn't just critiquing him, she's gleefully pointing out that the emperor's new clothes don't fit. That's why her takedown hits harder than a routine political jab. One viral roast cracked the dam, and now journalists, rivals, and internet sleuths are digging through Walz's record like it's a true crime thriller. Once someone spots a fracture, everyone wants to see how deep it runs. And exposure never stays contained, it multiplies. Now Walz is trying to sell himself as Harris's calm, collected co-pilot, while the internet jokes that his steady hand looks more like he's shaking a martini in an earthquake. Lindy lit the match, and the world's waiting to see how far the flames spread. Meanwhile, the political spin doctors are scrambling like chefs who forgot to preheat the oven, and honestly, it's glorious to watch.
Feedback. I want to take you back to the very first answer that he gave. Let's just remind ourselves, he sort of stumbled through. Right now, the crisis in the Middle East is, front and center of the global news agenda, and we would expect maybe that someone who was running to be the vice president would have more confidence. Let's remind ourselves of what happened.
October 7th, Hamas terrorists massacred over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. Israel's ability to be able to defend itself is absolutely fundamental. Getting its hostages back, fundamental, and ending the humanitarian crisis in.
Walz's team is stuck choosing between two bad plays, either triple down on the cozy cardigan charm or act like nothing's happening. Spoiler, both are doomed. When Lindy Li roasts you, it's not a debate, it's a full-blown barbecue, and the smoke sticks around. The go-to defense, of course, is it's out of context, because everything is these days. Walz could trip over a garden hose, and someone would still call it a heroic leap. But once people start seeing a pattern, no amount of actually statements can patch it back together. The media's split came fast. Some outlets still treat Walz like the lovable Midwestern uncle who shows up to the potluck with a hot dish and a corny grin, dismissing Lindy's takedown as just another spicy internet post. But others? They smell blood. And nothing fuels clicks like political blood. Now, every minor contradiction, every quiet compromise from Walz's past is suddenly headline gold. What used to sit buried in state-level footnotes has exploded into national news, complete with dramatic narration and music fit for a true crime documentary.
What do you think happened when he gave that answer, Lindy?
Well, as I mentioned before, J.D. Vance went to Yale Law School. He is seasoned, and I said this in the previous interview. This is what he does. He's slick and he's sharp, but Walz is a fundamentally good guy. And our focus group of battleground voters, mind you, understand that. They perceive that this is a down-to-earth guy, salt-to-the-earth guy who wants the best for the American people, versus Vance, who is backed by Peter Thiel and was a venture capitalist and is working for his billionaire.
Walz isn't built for this kind of spotlight. This is a completely different battlefield. He's been coasting in this safe little state-level sandbox where a smile and a friendly wave can smooth over a bit of chaos. But the national stage is brutal. Every shoelace, every sentence, every photo gets dissected. You can't coast on a calm tone and a fishing joke anymore. Now, under the microscope, Lindy's made sure the focus is razor-sharp. To everyday viewers, the irony practically writes itself. Walz, the supposed man of the people, suddenly looks more like a man reading from the script. His political persona feels overproduced, rehearsed, polished, and constantly tweaked for audience approval. And the timing couldn't be worse. A few years back, he might have smoothed this over with some photo ops and a "we're all in this together" op-ed. But in this election cycle, fast, fiery, and merciless, every move is dissected like a frog in biology class. Voters aren't looking for leaders who'll grow into the job. They want someone who's already steady right now.
I mean, I'm not on anyone's payroll. I'm not beholden to anyone. That's why I'm here telling the truth. I'm not here to gaslight anybody. This is just the truth.
What is the truth?
The truth is this is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1.018 billion, I think, right? There were $20 million or $18 million in debt.
Right.
Lindy Li just proved how flimsy Walz's so-called consistency really is, about as sturdy as a paper straw in a hurricane. Overnight, social media turned her takedown into a meme factory, with clips titled things like "Walz's speed run of hypocrisy." When your brand is Midwestern nice, but your record screams Midwestern chaos, the internet doesn't just call it out, it blasts it through a megaphone. Walz is learning the hard way that once the online crowd crowns you the punchline, you don't get to reclaim the joke. But beneath the laughs, this moment cuts deep, because politics runs on one fragile currency: trust. Whether earned or just well-marketed, Walz's entire appeal rested on being the steady, trustworthy neighbor. Lindy ripped that illusion to shreds. She revealed that his authenticity wasn't character, it was costume. And once voters see the zipper on the mascot suit, good luck convincing them it's a real bear. Other politicians have taken hits like this before, but this one lands differently because of who delivered it. Lindy doesn't just criticize, she performs. She makes the truth entertaining. And in today's media circus, that combination isn't just effective, it's lethal.
I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened, because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled. And even on the night of election night, I looked somebody in the eye and I said, "Are we going to do this? Are we going to pull it off?" She told me yes. And I asked somebody else, "How are you feeling?" He's like, "We're going to win Iowa."
That's what makes Lindy's approach so dangerous. In today's media landscape, no one shares dry political critiques. They share the roasts, the sarcasm, the clips that make them laugh and nod in agreement. That's how narratives go viral now. Entertainment dressed up as accountability. Meanwhile, Walz's opponents are quietly popping champagne. In politics, the most devastating blow rarely comes from your rivals. It's when someone outside the system exposes you. That feels authentic, and authenticity sticks. Now the Harris campaign is sweating because a VP pick is supposed to steady the ship, not rock it. Walz was chosen to be the calm co-pilot, the safe pair of hands who wouldn't scare moderates or steal the spotlight. But instead of steady, he looks shaky. Instead of reassuring, he looks rehearsed. And in an election where every attack ad is being sharpened like a medieval sword, that's political poison. What's wild is how fast the story flipped. Before Lindy's expose, Walz was barely a blip on the national radar, just another background extra you'd Google once and forget about 5 minutes later.
What's your take?
My take is the most neglected part of home ownership is the gutters. It's personal for me.
This is Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz making an appearance on the popular TikTok show Subway Takes.
Had problems with gutters before. You get your basement wet, you get ice dams, causes a lot of problems.
How often do you like looking at gutters?
I look quite often, surprisingly, because
Like
I kind
you
of judge
inspect
it.
it.
I try not to be judgmental on people, but when I see a well-tended gutter, it says a lot.
But now he's front-page news, not for his policies, but for his contradictions. It's the political equivalent of being remembered not for your big movie role, but for tripping on the red carpet, unforgettable, but for all the wrong reasons. And the more Walz tries to downplay it, the worse it gets. Shrugging looks guilty, smiling looks fake, and addressing it only keeps the story alive. It's a lose-lose situation. Walz built his reputation on being the genuine, steady hand, but Lindy ripped back the curtain and revealed how staged that whole act really was. It's like discovering that your organic label was slapped on the same mass-produced junk as the bargain brand. Once people see that, you can't make them unsee it. What's almost poetic is that Walz's downfall isn't rooted in scandal or corruption, it's pure exposure. His brand is collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. It's a slow-motion implosion, death by 1,000 sarcastic cuts, each one spreading across social media until the carefully crafted image finally disintegrates.